This episode of the Darkest Link podcast contains footage from Shin Megami Tensei 5, developed by the wonderful people at ATLUS. Please proceed at your own risk, as there will be spoilers. In 1972, a psychologist by the name of Walter Mischel and his graduate student Eb B. Ebbison, I hope I'm pronouncing that correctly, set the groundwork for a simple longitudinal study on various life outcomes depending on one simple behavioral pattern: the relationship between preschoolers and a concept known as instant gratification. For those of you who don't know this concept, think about it like responding to a notification on your phone. Do you wait to check it? Or does waiting for that little ding make you the tiniest bit anxious? If you are of the latter group, most likely you know someone who enjoys the instant gratification of checking their phone to reduce unnecessary anxiety. That time between when you check your phone.
That rock-like demon. He looks familiar. The memory isn't clear, but I believe he may be a survivor of the battle between God and the demons. Our objective is Tokyo Tower. I recommend we avoid a confrontation for now and press on.
Apologies, Aogami interrupted me there for a sec. Where was I? Oh yeah, so instant gratification is referring to the person who instantly gratifies themselves by reducing the anxiety to a net zero by checking their phone after they hit that little ding notification. So there's a little bit of explanation there. In the original study, just to get back here on track, and its follow-up, it was found that those who waited to receive 2 marshmallows instead of eating the marshmallow right away were associated with more positive life outcomes. This is a basic example that came up in a general psychology class I took back in both high school and freshman year of college. And if you're wondering why I took that course both in my senior year of high school and my freshman year of college, it's because AP Psychology was the same as Intro to Psychology, which being Psychology 130 at the college that I went to, and I just happened to not pass the AP test, so that was... It was a pain in the butt to have to, repeat that course, because I just wasn't able to... I just wasn't taking the time to study, and yeah, but that's a tangent for another day. So what was neglected to be mentioned in both of those classes when I was, doing it, and I just got this basic understanding of instant gratification and this whole study, a staple of Gen Psych courses, to be quite honest, is that there was a replicated study that was taking place with a more diverse population that found socioeconomic status to be more of a profound factor that correlated with love outcomes. And the only reason why I know about this replicated study was because, as I was researching for this video, I found it on all things Wikipedia. And thankfully, just, a good thing about Wikipedia, you can always check the sources that are utilized to compile that Wikipedia article. So I was just able to, check and see that this was actually legit. And yeah, it is. So, yeah, from a psychology standpoint, the study that was, touted as a landmark in instant gratification studies, it's it's incredibly flawed and maybe a bit racist. So, yeah, if all things considered, like, I just want you, the listener, you, the viewer, to take away this concept, as the concept of one's relationship to instant gratification, for me, prompted a closer look at a particular segment of video gamers, simply due to an absurd tendency to withhold instant gratification. One of which has no scientific backing, but a rather long, drawn-out hypothesis to lay out over an entire podcast. So that's basically what I'm using this episode for. It's that I just noticed personally in myself that I do a lot of grinding. I do a ton of grinding in video games, and some of that is putting myself through the ringer, and in that whole struggle to try and just honestly get through as much as I possibly could, I just found myself just having to spend hours upon hours to get that high of just like, oh hey, I completed this one task that I set out to do. So, yeah, delayed gratification there. So, I realized that was a long-winded way to get into it, because I realized, oh my goodness, that was about 6 or 7 minutes or so of time. For those of you who did not know, hello to all you wonderful listeners out there. I am a random Darklink, an autistic gamer, budding podcaster, and YouTuber, welcoming you to just the second episode of the Darkest Link podcast, a comprehensive take on background noise, promising to leverage my hyperfixation tendencies towards a wide range of subjects that, when combined with the natural ambiance that comes from passively watching gaming videos, will hopefully, this is my hope, will hopefully create the ultimate state of zone out ever. The ultimate state of just letting my voice, letting just the noise going on in the background just take you away from whatever it is you're doing right now and just zone out. I don't know what will happen. This is an experiment. So, before I begin going into like the depth of this episode, like, I just want to say thank you to all who tuned in to the first one. It may have been only 40, 50 or so views, but I appreciate, I really do. I appreciate any risk you are willing to take in listening to something so unknown. As at the time of this recording, I have only 110 subscribers here on this channel, and it's far from like a, you know, a big YouTuber's following that just tends to eclipse mine by about like maybe 1,000, 10,000 fold. It's insane how much YouTube has grown, but yeah, you truly are risk takers, and I hope to continue to live up to your standards. Today's episode, yeah, as I said before, is something that I don't know if anyone really thought about, and if they did, then hopefully I can at least add something to the discussion, because when is anything truly original if it innovates on a previous concept? So either way, I hope you will enjoy this and find the argument I present riveting, listener. This argument being that those who are willing to go through and sometimes enjoy thoroughly the act of quote-unquote grinding, which to me, I'm referring to the deliberate act of putting in time to set yourself up for success, whether it be through gaining experience or gathering resources in video games, have some of the most universally translatable skills in surviving this thing called life. To quote a famous musician that is tied to the state I currently reside in, I say currently reside in, but I have lived in Minnesota my entire life, so I don't know if that's exactly the correct wording. But anyways, if you like what you hear, please give this a thumbs up, as I am told this does give a nifty little indicator to the algorithm to promote my stuff. I don't have a set release schedule for this podcast, and that's mostly just because, like, it does, like, for the most part, this is a pre-scripted program, and so I am trying to balance both this and my usual content, which is, you know, a traditional gaming like let's play experience that, you know, can sometimes go for as like, you know, short as 30 minutes to this mammoth of a video that I put out recently where it eclipsed well over 2 hours. So all the same, like I've been trying to set a release schedule for some time. I'm hoping to do so with this next playthrough that's going to be coming out, which, as you will know, by the time this releases, will be Final Fantasy VI. Excuse me. So hopefully, like, with that, like, I might be able to, at the very least, like, get myself onto a regular place where I am able to produce at least one of these a month. Maybe one every 2 months. But at the same time, it's just, yeah, I mean, it's not like, you know, other podcasts that are, you know, built upon, you know, a team of people. Like, I'm doing this all on my own, so any support is greatly appreciated because I really do enjoy the time that I get to just do something different and make pre-scripted content as opposed to what I'm used to. So, with all that being said, please subscribe and turn on notifications so you know when these episodes come out until like I get a set release schedule for this stuff going, because that's probably the only way you're going to find out. So, all right, I think I blabbed on a little bit too much. It's time to deep dive into this episode that I am dubbing an ode to those who grind, the most dedicated of gamers. So, as you can see, I recorded footage of my playthrough of Shin Megami Tensei 5, which I will go a little bit more deep into over the course of this episode. And as you can see, like, there is some grinding on display here right now that I'm trying to do, and that involves these little red creatures known as Mimon. And so I'm going to point that out, like, pretty soon. So, anyways, to get us started off, just like the previous episode, I wanted to talk about this subject because it draws upon the things I'm especially interested at the moment, which I hope will translate into something incredibly trance-like to anyone who starts to listen to this. As such, I must admit I do have a personal experience with this, because for those of you who saw a younger version of me on this channel before, like, it showed that I tended to be especially religious to the act of grinding in the games that I played here. Just to give, like, some really old examples, like, what I would do on just about every Fire Emblem playthrough that had, like some method to experience grind, like, because I was utilizing, like, primarily emulators to do what I needed to do, I heavily abused the save states, and I tried to max out just about every character and reroll the RNG like crazy. Like, it was an experience where, like I tried to pretend, I look back on this now and just think, like, it's just so silly of me to do, but at the same time, like, it had its own appeal, I would say. Like, just trying to pretend that, like, I got incredibly blessed in RNG when in actuality, like, I was screwing the damn thing, like, over and over and over again to get the right stuff onto a unit I was building. So it was just like, it was just trying to, like, break the game whenever I possibly could. And so, legit, like, I would say, like, I'm pretty well versed in the art of video game experience grinding, at least. So, elaborating on that personal interest, like, in the main playthrough that I am posting right now, that is going to conclude, like, shortly before this episode comes out, it just, like, I am at a point in the game, I've been at a point in this game for, like, such a long time, that I have many of my characters over-leveled to the point that I am you know, able to blow through the game a little bit more with ease, but at the same time, like, you know, this is done despite the fact that I'm playing on a harder difficulty, this being Fire Emblem Engaged, like, and so, like, even though that I am grinding, like, a lot of people will tell you who played Fire Emblem Engaged, like, there are some individuals who brought up the criticism of, you know, just the experience just not being as rewarding as other entries in the series. And so, the difficulty of grinding levels on hard mode is just the fact that, like, there are, like, enemy units will scale to the level of your party. I have no idea how, but, like, they do, like, levels do scale in that game, and so it does make the grinding process, like, infinitely harder. And so, yeah, I won't go on to say here in this script, it's like, it's much more hilarious than any previous entry in the series, in my opinion. So this game, Fire Emblem Engage, like, it has many opportunities beyond the experience grinding for one to get ahead if the player wishes to put in that exorbitant effort. And of course, like many of the modern Fire Emblem games, having DLC content which allows for the grinding of, like, experience on maps that are removed from the level curve to an extent. So, like, let's just say, for example, a recommended level on a map on, like, the regular game's overworld without DLC content is Advanced Class Level 5. DLC maps, when you get to replay them again because of the random spawning of, like, various, like, enemy troops, it could range from Advanced Class Level 5 down to some of the lowest levels of maybe Base Class Level 10 if your spread is just that much between various characters in your party. So, yeah, like, the recommended level, I mean, it seems to grow parallel to the average level of your party at the mode level. I still need to test that. I just can't. As far as I know, like, no one has, like, the best understanding of, like, how these levels are determined yet. So I don't really know that. So as a result, like, Fire Emblem games in general just tend to be a grinder's haven, as there are many ways to go on that grind. Whether it be, like, obtaining the highest level of support conversation available for each ally's individual supports, which, look, if I'm being honest and realistic here, it just, that usually tends to take, like, multiple playthroughs in older games, when, you know, the limit that each character can have on each other for, like, supports is 5 conversations total. And so, whereas with modern games, you could just, like, save scum, like in Awakening, with, you know, trying to get all those sweet S supports, for example. Yeah, and that's mostly just because the main character has like an S support that can only be obtained one per playthrough. Unfortunately for Fire Emblem Engage, like, there is no way to track what S level or ring level in this game supports you've obtained, because Fire Emblem Engage doesn't provide an overarching database that Three Houses provides on their home menu. Another way to grind, you could try to obtain all the skills you can, but I seriously don't know why anyone would take that on, especially in Fire Emblem Engage, because of, like, how reclassing and learning skills work in that game. And, you know, it's just, it's the point where, it's just, they cannot take class skills that you would learn from, like, an individual class into another class. Like, you know, that game, Fire Emblem Engage, just did away with that concept overall, in favor of inheriting skills from emblems based on an SP system that I swear was highly inspired by Heroes of all properties. And then, you know, you could take experience in grinding like one stage further, and to the point where your allies end up capping most of their stats. I mean, that was probably the most fun challenge that I had for myself whenever I was playing, like, you know, just a simple, like, normal, classic, or casual playthrough of Fire Emblem Awakening. Like they made capping stats like a neat little reward, because I mean there was DLC that it actually gave you a skill that expanded everyone's caps by 10, and so it was just a never-ending hodgepodge of just, you know, seeing what each individual unit becomes, like at base or with reclassing, and what exactly their roles end up becoming specialized just based on the skills they have access to. Like, it's a lot of fun. It's honestly a lot of fun when you see past the monotony of the whole experience. So, excuse me. And then, like, in Fire Emblem Engage, another way to grind, obtaining max bonds with all emblems in the game. Once again, I have no idea why you would do that, considering, like, bonds are seriously some of the most shallow conversations I think I've ever heard in any game ever. Like, look, all things considered though, like, when you're comparing to how it was done from, like, the first time with Radiant Dawn, with, like, short support conversations, even if you could even call them those, like, you could still, like, with Engage, like, you had a decent amount of supports between various individuals, plus the ability to support and bond with just every single emblem. Every single character had access to that. Like, I mean, all things considered, like, in terms of complexity, like, I have to give credit where credit is due. Like, Engage does a wonderful job of just, like, making the mother of all collectathons, because they, on top of that, like, they have this thing in the game where, you know, you're able to compile just a massive Fire Emblem encyclopedia because of a neat little thing that I barely utilized called bond rings. And creating bond rings from, like, collecting a bunch of bond fragments, like, it's a whole tedious process that is just the king of all collectathons, where in, like, 10 characters per emblem, like, per main emblem. Like, the DLC emblems don't count. 10 characters for each emblem obtained in the game, pertaining to the emblem's game of origin. And then for each character that is associated with that emblem, you have a C, a B, an A, and an S ranked bond ring. So there were 40 bond rings that you could obtain for every single emblem that was included in that game.
Young man, it's still far off, but I sense the presence of a powerful demon.
Oh, hey, you hear that? The demon of the tower sounds like he's on a rampage. He's super scary. He's got like a gajillion heads, and he'll gobble up pretty much any demon that gets too close. That's why none of the other demons ever go near the tower. I've heard rumors that he even breathes fire and spits poison and stuff.
The demon of the tower. Seems he's a dangerous foe. Young man, before we go to Tokyo Tower, I recommend we strengthen ourselves by defeating other demons, or by recruiting them to our side.
Okay, so once again, there's just going to be some mild interruptions. Fun fact, Amanozako is voiced by the same voice actor that provided an English voice to Flane from Three Houses. If you're putting two and two together and seeing where you may have heard that voice before, if you're like like a viewer of my channel. So it's, yeah, to just go based on that, like, and just maybe sum it all up. Despite the issues that I have stated with Engage overall, like, it provides enough to be a collectathon in the eyes of dedicated grinders out there. And, you know, for what it's worth, that is actually one of Engage's strongest points. Is just the sheer amount of collectability that you can have in that game. Like most Fire Emblem games, like, Engage does that well. Now, is it justifying about, like, whether or not you want to collect everything like that? I mean, that depends on the game. That really does depend on the game, and Engage may have its own arguments for that I'm just not going to go into. So, to maybe just focus on the game that you're actually seeing on the screen here, just to add on to that, like, personal experience, like, it just, yeah, and I just gotta remind myself, like, where exactly is that I'm going here. It's just, you know, I'm trying to just detail, like, just a massive, like, personal experience that I have had with grinding, and just showing you that, like, I'm legit serious about this being, like, you know, a possible hypothesis that could, like, be done. Like, is it really that serious? Like, no, this is not a serious podcast by any stretch of the imagination. All the stuff that I employ here, it's very unprofessional. I mean, I say that, like, knowing that I'm using the word very, which tends to be, like, a word that English teachers and anybody who enjoys any form of, like, massive academic writing despises. Like, very is quite the trigger word for that. And I don't say that lightly. Like, you know, it's a word that, you know, that I've said and used before that did visibly, like, make some of my English teachers cringe on a couple occasions. Like, a visual, visceral reaction floating on their face, like, scrunched up, like they may have just ingested a melon or something. Like, they started to look a little bit like Gilbert Gottfried. Just to drive that point home. But, yeah, just adding on to just another aspect of that personal experience. In the game that I'm playing for a pivotal part of this background noise here, it just, like, the video experience tied to this overall podcast, like, this game is also just a king grinder's haven for just a bunch of reasons. And as you can see, like, with this particular footage, there's a little bit of discrepancy. Like, I didn't want to mention it before, but, like, you know, we're already, like, about 30 or so minutes in here, and it's like, you know, like, there's just, like, a major difference between what was shown on camera in the first episode compared to the second. That being, I've completed the game already, and so I just happened to loop around, and so, yeah, and that's just, it's merely for the point of this episode. A staple of the franchise, in terms of, like, you know, just grindability, like, you can converse with enemy demons to recruit them into your party. You've seen that before with, like, that demon in a jar that I talked to earlier. And also the Kate Sith, which I'm surprised, you know, it's even in this game, considering, like, how prominent of an enemy it is also in Final Fantasy games. But anyways, like, you can converse with enemy demons to recruit them into your party, and these demons get registered into a logbook carried by the player. It is a grind to obtain all the demons that are able to be recruited, because to complete this logbook, you will need to utilize a bunch of different ways to obtain these demons. So, these being the conversational aspect I just mentioned, completing in-game quests to unlock the demon in question, and have them join your party, utilizing demon fusion to merge 2 creatures into one. You will see plenty of that in this video, I can assure you. Like, I don't care if, like, I just happen to get, like, you know, for example, like, right in, like, later in this video, I will undertake a quest from someone that is going to be located right at the top of this waterfall. And, basically, I am just going to... I'm going to do that. I'm going to go to their target. I'm going to get the other side of this quest, because it does affect alignment in this game. So it's just like, oh, hey, one's a chaos-sided quest, one's a law-sided quest. And so I'm just going to... I'm going to obtain the law demon on this particular playthrough. So I'm going to beat the chaos demon. I'm going to grab the law demon. And, yeah, just not even, like, 10 seconds after I do it, like, she's going bye-bye. The law demon's just going bye-bye and used for fusion fodder. But, yeah, so... To stay on the same page of fusion, there's also special fusion, which usually requires 3 or more demons, or 2 demons. 2 demons, and, that the fusion requirements aren't unlocked until you complete a certain quest. So even fusion requirements are locked behind quests. Not just a single demon that you can obtain from a quest, for example. Yeah, there's plenty of ways to obtain demons in this game. And I would say the mother of all of these is, you can only recruit this game's, like, ultimate boss, by... beating them and completing a story quests. They get unlocked as a special fusion, and then you can go have fun with that. So it just, yeah, many different ways to obtain demons in this game, and it's a grind to obtain all the demons. Like that's one aspect of grinding that you can do in this game and have loads of fun with it if you're really enjoying that stuff. Obviously, it is also a grind to get your main character to level 99 by the end of the game, and in some cases, especially in mine, it's going to require 2 playthroughs of dedication with a New Game Plus that I'm playing through here right now in this footage. Yeah, it is a grind. Third way. To get all of the game's individual endings, that requires a minimum of 4 playthroughs. Something that, once again, spoilers. For anyone listening, because I've completed this game before, I'm going to be spoiling a bunch of stuff. There are 4 endings in this game. However, unlike most Shin Megami Tensei games, you don't have to be alignment locked to select an ending. Only selecting the ending, locks you into that alignment. But if you are ideologically, like, pushed away from that choice, like, you are basically, locked out of some certain quests that are tied to that law, chaos, neutral alignment, you know, that kind of stuff. So, for the 4 playthroughs, like it's a grind to get all the games as individual endings. So, I mean, it requires at least a minimum of 4 playthroughs to get that full, like, decorated file that shows all the indicators that you completed all 4 endings. So, yeah, and for one of those endings too, like, it requires completing a list of specific quests to even lock the opportunity to play that uber difficult 4th path, which is an interesting ending in of itself too. So, yeah. Also, it is also a grind to unlock all of the abilities that can be learned through this thing within the World of Shadows called Apotheosis. which, this system, it allows you to augment your main character through a separate collectible currency that also has grinding aspects and is tied to a collectathon too. It's just like, you saw me grab like this shiny fruit in the beginning of this, like somewhere in the beginning of this video. Hi, Ippon Titara. But anyways, like you saw, like, just this shiny, like glimmering fruit, like floating in midair. That's how you gain this currency in some cases. Like, that's called glory, and it's used to unlock abilities through apotheosis. Another system which, it's also tied to a collectathon because you can gain glory from those fruits, or because I've mentioned them before, you probably saw the creatures that grant glory if you're like watching the video version. And even if you didn't, you would at least recognize the odd dialect of the creatures, of just like, those weird noises like bye-bye! Those weird noises. You know what I'm talking about, right? The Memon? That is a pain to do, and of course, there are times, like, throughout this whole process, like, it doesn't seem like I know what it is that I am doing direction-wise, and that's mostly just because while I was recording this, I was looking down on my phone for most of the time, so, there was some decent amount of, like, Memon cross-referencing from a guide that I was using on, like, I believe it was Game 8. I'll put the link in the description, if anyone wants to check that guide out, for their own personal use. So yeah, I mean, collecting all the Memon, pain to do, and of course, like, resort to just about every tool that I can to complete as much as I can, as I will say, being a completionist like Gerard Kalil is another way to grind in this game, because honestly, completions are what I would consider the highest tier subset of grinding gamer when ranking them on dedication. Like, and it's like, I didn't really think too much about like putting grindier gamers into tiers, because I mean, there are the hardcore gamers that will try to do it with as little grinding as possible, and then there are those who will go absolute like ram into the wall and just absolutely embrace like the grinding mindset it takes to play some of these games. So yeah, completionist, highest tier of grinding gamer when ranking them on dedication. And then maybe just to tie that whole like personal experience with my like interest in like the gamers who grind, and maybe the translatability of some of these skills. Like, I mean, I played the series of which can be seen as Mega 10 Games is made for younger audience counterpart. If you don't know what I'm talking about, I am talking about the good old storied series known as Pokemon. And yeah, it's pronounced Pokemon. I will rip you to shreds. Like, not really, but I will verbally rip you to shreds if you mispronounce that in any way, and you will feel the wrath of my I don't even know where I was going with that. But anyways, like Pokemon did come after the Shin Megami Tensei games, and so like I really don't know how much that series was influenced by ATLUS. At the same time, it's like, I'm willing to bet, like, just given what I stated before, where it's like, anything that is truly created and quote-unquote original is probably, influenced by something else, and therefore, like, perhaps an innovation on concepts that were introduced previously. And so I am willing to bet that Pokemon could have been, like, an innovation that built upon, like, the concepts introduced by Shin Megami Tensei, or other games that, resorted in, like, these creature collectathons. So, yeah, just to get back on that topic, like there are two examples actually that I can bring up about my personal experience with the series, and that's and how it just
Welcome to the world of shadows, where demons gather.
finally entering the world of shadows. And like I said, there was a option there, apotheosis callback. So, anyways, to sort of explain these my experience with Pokemon and grinding, like two examples I can bring up was when I played Black version 2 and when I played Pokemon X. So in Black version 2, like all the games in the series before Sun and Moon did away with this concept, and I still like that was the, and I dropped off the series because of that, to be quite honest. Like that was really the turning point for me in me stopping my interest in Pokemon until just recently. Is the biggest grinding experience in all Pokemon games. I think probably one of the most quintessential and well-known grinding collectathons to ever grace video game history, and that is completing the coveted National Pokédex, which included every single pocket monster that had been released up to that point. Yeah, so like while getting the Pokemon you so lovingly raised up to the max level is the heart of a traditional grinding experience in a lot of RPGs, there was something incredibly rewarding about completing that coveted National Pokédex. Whether it be, getting to just delve deeper into this series lore and seeing just how much, to be quite honest, how much it might actually, get kids curious about nature too. Completing that dex, exploring various regions, interacting and networking with other gamers to find that Pokemon that you did not have previously in your specific copy of the National Pokédex. There was just something so magical and rewarding about that. Of just seeing, individual entries about certain Pokemon, seeing, their biological, differences, whether it be, footprints or something to that effect. There was something incredibly rewarding about, you felt like you were researching. You felt like you were doing some actual, animal science or, biological research on various different creatures that were located in this fantasy environment that you were put into. And so, yeah, despite how I did end up completing that Pokédex, and, yeah, I'm saying this to say, I did not complete it legitimately, and you can very well dog on me for all you would absolutely want to, because you're well within your right to. You're well within your right to. I cheated. I absolutely cheated. I had no friends. I completed the National Pokédex by using a site called PokeGTS, a play on the whole, global trading system that allowed one to create Pokemon files, upload them, and then through connecting to a specific server by messing with your connection settings in on your DS, you could actually get the Pokemon that you yourself actually customized for the game into your specific copy. And it was it wasn't legit. It was hacking, and the only reason why I know about it is just because, surprisingly, despite how truly how much the channel evolved over time. Like, Phoenix Master 1 started out as a channel that promoted this hacking method. And the first Pokemon that I got with, Arceus, of course. And to be quite honest, I think I was just absolutely frustrated and I resorted to this. Oh my god, this music's so awesome. But anyways, it's such a shame that I ended up grinding, so I can barely hear it when I'm having to record this, you know? It sucks. But yeah, I mean, Pokemon, like, I was just absolutely infuriated because at around this time, like, the global trading system was a mess. Like, it's a mess in every game for some specific reason or another. But like, in the Black version games, the GTS was like, its main drawback was the absurd amount of just like unreasonable requests for this Pokemon or that Pokemon, and it just absolutely like permeated the sphere so much so like it just made the GTS just a joke. Like for example, maybe like I wanted like just, you know, a simple like Pokemon for like a starter, for example. I'd say like maybe a Snivy. There are some people on that particular trading system for the DS that would they would ask for a level 9 and under legendary or special Pokemon. And it is so ridiculous because they did not, like, there was no legit way to get that in-game without some kind of hacking. Like, there does not exist, as far as I know, there does not exist any copy, and this was the fusion I was talking about. Like, I obtained Apsaras only to fuse her into one of the divine angels of legend. Like, I was just she was fusion fodder. She was fusion fodder. So yeah, like that alone, like that was what prompted me to utilize hacking, just because, like, it was messed up. It was absolutely messed up.
I'm detecting a powerful demon in front of Tokyo Tower. We'll want to be extremely cautious if we intend to go any further.
Yeah, so I wanted to complete this deck so much. So, and this is a cutscene. We'll talk more about this after everything gets going, because this stuff is something. Flashback.
Heed my words, brethren. As decreed by the Seraphim, I, Abdiel, hereby take command of Bethel's holy army. Our foes are the demons of chaos, who swore allegiance to that contemptible snake. Yet fear not, we are all blessed with the divine protection of God himself. Warriors from far and wide, hear me now. Strike them down in the name of order! The unholy will find their deliverance by our blades!
god you cravenly revere is dead. Slain by my own hand, that humanity might finally live unbound from their chains.
Vile serpent, your lies mean nothing.
I speak only the truth. I have ascended the Pillar Imperial, the throne of God. As an angel, you know what this means. Such uncouth behavior from my former brethren. Order itself has crumbled. Chaos shall envelop the world. And from that chaos, there shall be a true rebirth. A wholly new future. All that remains is for me to sow the seeds that shall sprout into this grand reality.
Lucifer, the Lord of Chaos himself. The most powerful demon there is, and commander of their legions. Shortly after our encounter, my operation ceased. It was only after I sensed your presence that I reactivated. I've since recovered a portion of my memory data. Yes, I was an agent of Bethel, and I was sent here on an important mission. They have a base not far from here, at the Tokyo Diet Building. There, the angels of Bethel work tirelessly to protect the people. Young man, it is my guess that the angel who took your friend will also be there. Let us make our way to the Tokyo Diet Building, for your own safety.
Hey! Hey! This is no time to space out! Something's coming!
Yeah, sorry. I said I wasn't going to talk about all this, but, like, as I said before, like, I grinded a lot to get to this point, in which I completed the entire game and cut out my frustration that I had on this the first time I faced this boss. And, well, as you will see, if you're able to watch this video, I just obliterate this guy with a thalassic calamity. Yeah, that did not take long at all. And then Amanazako starts talking again.
Wow, you're pretty strong, huh? You totally are strong. Seriously, I can't believe you actually beat the tower demon. Crazy!
Okay, so I think I am safe from an intense amount of dialogue. I was just standing around there because I was looking at my phone when I recorded that to look for the Mimon that was located around this tower area. you know, all part of the grind. So I think I'll take this moment to shift to my second experience with Pokemon, which was Pokemon X. So I think this is probably the most unique one that I'll bring up here. But yeah, like, given how cookie cutter and somewhat uninspired the story content was in this particular video game, like, I delved into a new realm of grind that I didn't realize was possible. And I did that as a result of, well, frankly, yeah, I mean, this is a story, so, like, it was high school, it was my junior year, and, you know, just randomly one of my friends ended up, like, she ended up deciding to bring, like, her DS to school, and, she ended up starting to play Pokemon White version, and me being the autistic person here who was also interested in Pokemon, which is, like, immediately fixated on what she was trying to do, and then I made the haphazard comment of just, like, wait, isn't that, that is a lot of money. And then she went on to explain to me that, you know, she was trying to... This soundtrack is just... Like, the bad part about grinding in this game is just, like, there are times until, like, much later when you're, like, me, that you won't be able to hear a decent portion of some of these songs. And it sucks, because this soundtrack goes hard in some places. But yeah, anyways, like, she was trying to save up enough to obtain 99 of every single item that was buyable in that game. Like, she was willing to put herself through that. And it just... There it goes. She gave me the idea to impose my own challenges that I created for myself to bide the time, and therefore created my own specific grinding experience. In that game, in Pokemon X, like, I decided, like, I was going to challenge myself to build a Pokemon team to beat the Elite Four and Champion for each starter Pokemon that was released up to that point. So that means I would be creating a team for Bulbasaur, Charmander, Squirtle, Chikorita, Cyndaquil, Totodile, Trico, Torchic, Mudkip, Turtwig, Chimchar, yeah, Piplup, Snivy, Tepig, Oshawott, Chespin, Fennekin, Froakie. All of those starters were going to get a specific team built around them. And yeah, like, it was, you know, it was a grind. It was honestly a grind, so much so that by the time I fell off of Pokemon X and fell out of Pokemon in general, like, I still have yet to complete that challenge. I'm still trying to complete that challenge right now. So, like, it was just, like, the rules, I also imposed my own, like, set of rules for each of that. Like, I could not have duplicate Pokemon between teams, and so, like, if I used, for example, a Bagon on one team, I couldn't use a Bagon on another team. Like, I had to use, like, various different Pokemon to have its own unique chemistry, and that meant, like utilizing Pokemon that I would never have thought to utilize ever in my life before that point. And so I got some really nice synced up and, like, incredibly broken teams, and I also got some really inefficient and difficult to use teams. And so it was a hodgepodge of just absolute insanity. And so, yeah, like, I created grinds for myself that I didn't think possible to get a wide breadth of Pokemon. Like to do this, like, I still can't believe, like, this is still possible, right now, because the, finally! Like, I'm pretty sure that is the only time a Memon says, bye-bye! In that entire, like, in this entire video. Okay? Now, that's, like, my favorite thing to hear a Memon say. It's just like, bye-bye! Oh, that one was actually really good right now. It's like, so what I did was, like, I clasped my, my Adam's apple up to my, my chin, and then I add a little bit of just, like, trying to hit a specific point in my throat. It's like, bye-bye! Okay, I gotta remember that. I gotta remember that for, like, making just a weird voice for, like, any... That was a weird glitch. Yeah, so... Yeah, how I did this, how I managed to gather a whole breadth of Pokemon to complete this challenge. Like, I utilized one of, like, my lucky traits, which was a Charmander with its hidden ability, and I breeded a crap ton of Charmander. Some of them had the default abilities, some of them had solar power, and so I became... Seriously, like, I can only imagine, like, if you ask anyone, like, there's a chance that there is, like, a crap ton of Charmander or starter Pokemon out there with my trainer ID on them, and I may or may not have, like, given, like, a bunch of individual copies their own Pokemon. Like, there is a decent chance, like, some of my Pokemon are, like, somewhere around the world and I don't realize it. I mean, I would like to share my trainer ID, but I have no idea if, like, you know, it's relevant enough, and that would mean, like, firing up my DS at this moment, and I kind of don't want to. So, like, the gist is, like, I breeded a crap ton of Charmander, some with its hidden abilities, some without, and basically, like, I sent all these Charmanders over the Wonder Trade system, and just so I could get a variety of different Pokemon. And so the results, as you can probably tell, were all over the place. Some of them were just plain obnoxious and stupid. Like, I got a crap ton of Zubats, and probably, I never thought I would have such a aversion to a single Pokemon in my life. But yeah, you show a Zigzagoon in front of me, and I will throw your DS out the window. Like, legit. Like, you like, Zigzagoon is such an infuriating Pokemon to me now. But yeah, so, but then, like, even with, like, you know, just that, like, ridiculousness, I got some really nice, odd Pokemon out of it. Like, Pokemon with their hidden abilities. I mean, that was how I ended up getting the Charmander with solar power, to be honest. I also got a Froakie with Protean, so that meant, like, I had their hidden ability too, and I'm now milking that for Wonder Trades. And then there are some cases where, like, I ended up getting, like, a Scolipede, a shiny Scolipede with a focus sash, and it was entirely super trained. Like, this Pokemon was competition ready, and what this person wanted and was willing to give up for, was willing to give this up for just a level 1 Charmander with Blaze. Like, it was wow. It was wow. Like, and the insanity doesn't end there. Like, I picked up this game recently, and I did another Wonder Train batch again, and since I picked up the game, like, yeah, I realized just how hacked, you know, the global trading system has become since I stopped playing and started playing again, and I may or may not have gotten the event-exclusive Darkrai with the Blazikenite. Like, it was probably hacked, but I still got I used a legit method to get a Darkrai out of it. Like, I got, like, for trading a Charmander, I got a Darkrai. Nice work. Like, I'm gonna send this. I got a fucking Darkrai. Like, it's just... what? Like, grinding... Like, I got this right before I trained up my Torchic team, too. So, like, that actually happened. But, yeah, I mean... I became a creative grinder to fill the space in a game that did not have much set up. And so... yeah, like, that was a long-winded way. I mean, mostly just to pad out time, since I mean, this video is like an hour 46. So, like, I share these 3 individual experiences because I wanted it to be absolutely clear that there is, like, some majorly, and I would say some incredibly dedicated individuals out there that, pardon me, damn it. There have been flies, you know, just flying around my place, and it's absolutely annoying. But to get back on topic here, like,
Yes.
like, there are individuals who play video games and just absolutely do, like, such incredible things with them, despite the limitations that are being put in place. And there are individuals who will spend days, weeks, months doing this one minuscule task to, you know, some cases no apparent reason, but, you know, just doing it. And, you know, it's just that mentality, that ability to just delay their own gratification. Like it's the reason why I believe they have quite a unique translatable skill set that can be utilized in different areas of our world.
And so the Hydra is slain. Fine work. A pleasure to meet you, young man. I am a humble monk of Jozoji Temple. My name is Goku. I sensed a disturbance in Tokyo. My search brought me a long way, and now I roam these lands. The Buddha's guidance compelled me to save you, but I see you never truly needed my help. But surely you did not pass wholly unscathed. Pardon the presumption, but let me give you this. I will be wandering this place for a while yet. If your path takes you across these dunes, I suggest you head that way. The angels of Bethel gathered in that distant place. It will surely be a safe haven. For now, farewell. May our paths under the Buddha's gaze cross again one day.
Namu Amida Butsu. Anyways, yeah, to get back to this whole thing again. Yeah, okay. To get back to all this, like, I'm just finally gonna lay down, like, what exactly is I wanted to talk about for this entire video, which was, I hypothesize...
Hey! Over here! Like, seriously!
Damn it, Amanazako!
Hey, you were talking about angels just now, weren't you? Ooh, in that case... I saw an angel inside the city, over that way. Come on, let's go check it out. I'll show you myself, okay?
As I said earlier, the angels are with Bethel, and they operate out of the Tokyo Diet Building. We should meet with that angel and ask him for directions on how to get there.
Okay, time to find us an angel.
But yeah, before I was so rudely interrupted by Amanazako, I hypothesized that individuals who are willing to display at least some semblance of inclination to grinding, display a concept of resiliency the psychological concept of resiliency that not many others have. And yeah, by extension, they display an unimaginable effort to stave off gratification, to delay it, as others in the psychology community call it, that many humans fall victim to, that we constantly have to fight. Not only that, depending on the level of dedication they're willing to put into games they play, whether it be putting themselves through grinding experience points on characters or going a completionist route, exploring everything that is even possible within the constraints of the game. Like, I predict this might correlate heavily in the level of resiliency they give to other tasks. And so I like in which like the amount of effort they put in one thing is translatable to the amount of effort they put into another thing. Like I am genuinely curious about the relationship posed by this hypothesis because it's no surprise. Like, it should not surprise anyone that generally gaming has a bad rap. And it has a bad rap because a lot of people, even the World Health Organization, see too much gaming as a problem. Like, there is such thing as a gaming addiction. And so, like, if anything, this relationship that I wish to, like, I'm genuinely curious about is because, like, examining this relationship, I want to see what it can do to maybe curtail some of the aspects of this, like, issue, and maybe even draw it to a point of, like, you know, find me. And so, like, yeah, just because I'm stumbling over myself here, is like, if there's any way to hijack some of the beneficial parts of this pattern or behavior to apply to a more productive part of society, not that this isn't like a productive part of society, because I mean, there is a role for entertainment in human life. It's just not everyone can be that, and not everyone is well qualified for that. And so, yeah, it's like, you know, like, once again, if there's a way to hijack some of the beneficial parts of this pattern of behavior to apply to a more productive part of society, I mean, this can really do good, because, I mean, not everyone can be a YouTuber. And now, granted, because I realize that my personal experience isn't truly enough to justify this kind of, like, interest, as, like, to infer the way humanity behaves based on your own human experiences alone, is inherently flawed. It is flawed because it doesn't take into consideration the complexity of the human condition as established by about every psychological study you can read. So with that being said, like, I will try to share a research basis with the little time that I have, this being about a half hour or so, and it's going to be, it's not a lot of research basing. Ultimately, like, my hope in all this is, like, you know, there's a psychologist who see this, who is willing to point me toward relevant studies, or even, like, get the idea to, like, study it themselves and, you know, do something with it more than I ever could, and, you know, take the flaws of my own proposition, refine them, and make it their own, and make it, you know, much more plausible. Because at the end of the day, I am some rando on YouTube proposing an idea that, you know, is more or less, like, gonna casually be interrupted by meme mod, basically. So, like, legit, like, I'm just going to do my best, because for those of you who are as curious to answer this question as I am, because that's also what I found led itself to investigating something, like, thoroughly. Oh, dear. Like, I mean, it's just, like, every competent psychologist, you know, will do this. Like, they will have, like, if there's like a personal interest, it's more than likely like, you know, they're going to see it through. And I know so because like this was something that was imparted to me by my senior project advisor, and it was also something that, you know, ended up like, you know, putting in some ways like my college on the map, because there is a researcher that does a lot of researcher at the college that I went to, that I got to take a class from, that I was willing to take a couple classes from and have discussions with him about this. This is like the role of forgiveness. Like he studies the psychology of forgiveness and has contributed a significant amount to the literature on that subject. And so it's just like every competent psychologist will do this. Like they'll have a personal interest, and they will also present previous research to establish a hole in the literature, as well as like, you know, some basing to what their hypothesis is considered. At most, the literature that I'm going to be, you know, talking about with what little time that I have, it's going to really nail home like the importance of resiliency, like the importance of like resiliency as established by this research. So now I thought I should start out by like, you know, I'm going to be explaining this casually. So this is not supposed to be a sophisticated psychology research paper that takes months or even years to write. For the most part, it's going to be that combination of tangent and script, that is, with the script being like one and done. Give or take a few typos that need to be corrected. So knowing that, I thought I would start off this like little casual literature review with something that I think a lot of people would be interested in, which is like, you know, increasing their chances to live longer. Like just saying that, like, I swear, I'm paraphrasing a really bad commercial that you know, offers like this kind of like drug treatment that offers cancer patients like a chance to live longer, which is followed up immediately by side effects that could be like impossible to be leading to death. Like it's just so stupid. Like those ads, drug ads in the United States are incredibly stupid. But that's going off on another tangent. So yeah, the study. Yi Zheng of Duke University in Durham, North Carolina, and Kei Shen of Peking University in Beijing, China. They mainly focused in this study on trying to examine the relationship between longevity and resiliency. And yeah, as a side note, operational definitions will vary throughout this entire experience. And I say that even though like I only give one definition here, because for the most part, like every study that I looked at tended to produce a similar construct overall. So I will be able to, I'll point out how each piece of literature examines and defines the concept of resiliency, even though they basically touch on about the same thing. So in this particular case, and the definition that I personally was utilizing to, you know, describe it, it's like they defined it as the ability to adapt positively to adversity, which, you know, could also be phrased as a person's ability to bounce back from trauma, to bounce back from the hardships of life. Like, resiliency is this concept. Resiliency is that whole thing there. And so, surprisingly, it was this particular definition that I ripped right out of this article, it was also taken from another study referenced in that paper, referred to only as Lamond et al. Good God, paper trails and psychology research is just something, ain't it? Like, it never ends. Like really lack of originality in some cases. So, back to the research summary at hand. They utilized the Chinese Longitudinal Healthy Longevity Survey, or as described in the article, the CLHLS, as a means to obtain a sample size to run statistical tests examining this relationship. This is a lot of psychological studies that aren't inherently focused on behaviorism, because like psychology is a bit of a it's an imperfect science based upon like humanity and human bias. Like it's riddled with that stuff. But yeah, the results presented in this study add something significant already. Like, they found that the oldest group they examined, which I mean, this article placed a explicit interest in centenarians as a subject. Like, they were considered the most resilient of the groups measured within the sample, and that resilience overall throughout that study, it correlated with a greater likelihood of living past 100. Now, I wish I could definitively say that I have 100% blind faith in the results of research, especially psychological research, but even with my limited experience with just being like a bachelor's of arts in psychology degree holder, I think I can like state at least well enough to know that rarely is it the case that a result is definitely proven when working with human subjects due to a multitude of factors at play. I phrase it like that because, you know, there are some things that can't be just definitively say, like, this is what it is. Like, math is based upon that whole principle. In some of its most basic ideas. Unless, you know, some guy just wants to be a jerk or like a smart aleck. Like, they could write like just some insane proof to like suggest that 2 + 2 does indeed equal 5 instead of 4, like everyone else is taught. Which honestly, I find absolutely absurd. Like, math is a logical subject for the most part. Like, trying to prove something that has been like, you know, just littered about and, you know, just established for all time that 2 + 2 does indeed equal 4 is some of the most absurd things that you will ever find. It just, yeah. But yeah, so, like, multiple factors at play. Like, I want to give myself some room for, like, you know, those, like pieces that, you know, just don't really have an argument for being, like, you know, having some wiggle room. Like, 2 + 2 equals 4 is one of those cases where it's like, okay, it's quite finite, you know? You know, it ain't the Riemann hypothesis. So, like, it's, yeah. Now, and then there's, like, you know, multiple factors. Like, I pointed out, like, you know, human bias is littered throughout psychology. I mean, there's no, like, I can tell you right now, like, statistical tests on their own, like, there are so many ways to manipulate a sample to get a result that you desperately want, whether it be, like, you know, influencing the amount of time that a respondent can take to, like, you know, get their answers in. And so, like, there's the whole, like, the amount of time it takes bias, where it's like, you know, some rush through quick and give random answers, and then there are individuals who will take time to deliberately think about it and do it. So, like, there is a crap ton of human bias. And, you know, there's also a bunch of controls to try and control for that error, whether it be, like, randomly, and I mean trying to make a truly random thing. It's because randomizing is still, like, a written code program. I mean, is it truly random? Because it's still, yeah. At the end of the day, like, there's a lot that goes into that whole multiple factors at play and why you can't definitively take a psychological study result at face value. I mean, I'm just giving, like the small, like, psychology for dummies answer. And trust me, you're not dummies. I'm just... Sorry, I like, there are some cases where I just cut some random stuff in this video, but anyways, like, yeah, that is what it is. Like, it requires multiple studies to paint a picture on something that, you know, is continuously researched. So, like, if anything, the more that you can research, the more that you can have a better understanding. And even then, your understanding is flawed because there's always going to be something new that comes along, for the most part. Almost always. Let me correct myself. So, the next study I ended up looking at was a study on older individuals with what was defined as mild cognitive impairment. Like, I will say this, I hate the word impairment because it suggests that, you know, there is just, like, something wrong and something, like, just imperfect about you, and, like, it's just, like, it's something that, like, compared relative to the norm is different. And in some cases, like, people like to just be absolute jerks to people who have, like, different ways of thinking, different ways that look, you know, you name it. But all the same, like, for this particular context, like, impairments unfortunately makes sense because it technically is, like, you know, this is affecting the way that they would normally function. So far, most of the studies that I have found in this resiliency, in this, like, whole resiliency search, in which, like, this concept plays a significant role, they usually examine older individuals. And from a general observation here, I mean, this makes sense to me because I'm focusing on this concept's long-term impact. So, even with the impact of this particular condition, the mild cognitive impairment, which for this study included Alzheimer's, dementia, like, there were some significant results to consider in this really flawed picture of the relationship resilience has on a lot of health outcomes. Clement Carbonell et al., 2022, which, for those of you who are unaware, is a specific example of an in-text citation common in APA style, the writing style commonly used in every single psychology writing you will find. Like, this study, in utilizing an example of individuals from where they were based, this being, like, Alicante, Spain, significant differences between the population of resilient and non-resilient individuals were found. The more resilient population did better at performing major life activities despite their cognitive impairment. And so, like, within just these two studies alone, the picture is starting to form on the role of resiliency and how it heavily impacts the person's ability to push back from like a particular, like, challenge that is demonstrated, whether it be you know, like, longevity, you know, what exactly goes into that relationship with longevity. It just, like, there just happens to be a correlation between resiliency and longevity. Or, you know, there's just, like, there are factors at play that show, you know, these older individuals tended to be better at, performing major life functions despite the impairment when they are described as more resilient. So, tying it back to how some video games are, like, designed to be sanity-draining escapades defined by a difficult challenge, I mean, it would not be unwise to consider that the resilient gamer can transfer their skill to the parts of life that honestly suck, as they have some proof of their ability in, like, this particular sphere. I mean, they're able to meet a challenge of, like, a video game just fine, and, you know, spend hours upon hours on it. Now, granted, that's still not a perfect picture, and I will explain later, but at the same time, like, at the end of the day, it would not be unwise to consider that the resilient gamer can transfer their skill to other parts of life that honestly suck, as they have some proof of their ability in another sphere. Once again, though, that is only two pieces of scientific writing, and again, I caution 100% buying into results when there is a much complex picture of any concept, which opens the door for more research to be done. I mean, that's the reason why you establish holes in literature. This is the reason why you establish this argument to why your concept should be studied, like, your study is relevant to the greater understanding overall in contributing to the literature. So, perhaps the most contradictory study I looked at for this episode, this podcast, was one of which, like, being another resiliency study focusing on an older population, wanted to see if there was a correlation between physical ailments and, well, like, specifically the prevalence of physical ailments and their level of resiliency overall. So, example, heart disease. Heart disease would be considered a physical ailment that would fall under the conditions for them to be part of a sample in this particular study. So I'm going to be real with you here. The most knowledge that I have of statistical tests go up to the variations of an analysis known as ANOVA or ANOVA. There are multiple people pronounce it both ways, and I've heard and seen that being pronounced both ways. Like, I've seen the lips move in different ways. I've got the bird. But yeah, anyways, yeah. Like, it is not something I'm going to bore you with. There are a multitude of different analysis techniques. You, as a random viewer, don't need to know, as it would extend the length of this episode. And, well, yeah, we just don't have the time. We only have about 15 minutes to cover everything that's left here. And so, like, all that needs to be considered was how the experimenters, how they generated a sample randomly by utilizing eligible individuals on an AARP medical insurance supplement plan. And so those being, according to the study's own words, at least 65 years of age with a minimum of 12-month continuous medical plan enrollment. And they made sure to account for the individuals who did not respond. Oh my god. Okay, so this is something silly that, I was, made aware of. I think it was in, of all things, my human resource management class that I took during the COVID year of college that I had. And so, yeah, my professor, he went into, like, this random tangent on, like, statistical polling, and specifically they went for, like, a particular, example with Harry S. Truman, and how, like, it was stated, like, I'm paraphrasing a lot, and I could be very wrong about this, so please take my words with a grain of salt. Like, Gallup, I think it was Gallup, like, Gallup, the pollster that is well known for, like, a decent amount of, like, public opinion polling in the United States, like around the time of, like, Harry S. Truman's, like, first election as president, because, I mean, he took over when Delano Roosevelt died. Like, he basically, like, Gallup was predicting that the was predicting that the... I'm so sorry. I am so sorry. I just don't know why this was escaping me for so long. Like, they were predicting that Truman's opponent would win the general election, and, they utilized a mailing list. They utilized a mailing list of like, a popular magazine to first off, like, just give like a on second thought, I really don't know. Either way, like, it was a polling company. I don't know what it really was, but, like, there was, like, an individual mailing list. They sent out surveys of, like, who exactly would you vote for? And then, who would think would do a better job as president or something like that. And, it just, like, it just understandably there were not a lot of people who actually answered the mail-in survey. There was only like a decent or so amount of people who did, and it turns out like the population of those who responded was just enough that like there were similar characteristics that, you know, swayed them one way over the other, in terms of, you know, whether or not they found Harry S. Truman like appealing as a presidential hopeful. And so like they showed the winner of that election being Truman's opponent, when that couldn't have been further from the truth. Truman did end up winning that election, and won that election, like, you know, with a decent space to boot. So like what happened? Well, the thing was, you know, when you're having, you know, just that kind of like response issue, it's typically like there are only like specific people that want to like answer the survey, and there are specific people that this generally appeals to, and they have a demographic shift of their own in some cases. Like it was enough that, you know, there was like a decent amount of bias, and it wasn't like the sample didn't end up becoming representative of the population overall. So like randomized sampling wasn't there. And so like to get back on track, like what this study did, they did do a mailing list, and they also tried to count for the individuals who did not respond by you know, using a variety of, you know, socioeconomic and, you know, like census data. I think it was like something along the lines of like utilizing like demographic data, a variety of data to try and like, you know, correct some of the aspects of the sample. So yeah, like they did what they can to try and weed out that bias as best as they could. So like the previous two, resilience here was correlated negatively with the presence of detrimental mental health conditions. These being depression and stress for this particular study's focus. This study, however, did not find any strong indication of a relationship between the presence of conditions like COPD, diabetes, and heart conditions. And, you know, I take that wording directly from the study, which, I mean, I apologize. Like, I was writing this and I did not mention this until, like, right now, which would be Musick et al. 2022. I'll be putting links for all this stuff down in the description. So, yeah, like I said, this is far from a professional literature review. I'm capping it off here because I only have so much time to spend talking about stuff like this. I only have about 8 or so minutes. So, yeah, from these 3 studies alone, we paint a picture that resiliency overall is shown as a possibly significant contributor in dictating how one responds and gets through life, and how the initial point was to establish significant basing to study this population of individuals, like to say like how these contribute and, you know, create like a significant basing to just studying these gamers on their resiliency. Like, firstly, like a lot of prevalent studies I have found, though it's likely I have not searched hard enough, seem to give a lot of attention to older individuals, which begs the question in general of how much younger populations are studied regarding the concept of resiliency. Like, I genuinely want to know if anyone's like out there and who's willing to put me in the right direction. Like, I would really appreciate it, because I'm constantly aiming to, you know, expand my understanding on a wide variety of topics, and I feel like ignorance is like the worst possible thing that one can do to contribute to like overall bias, overall mistakes, like it just helps that knowledge truly is power in that regard. So, to get back on track, like with the second reason, like I'm quite curious myself about the translatability for skill like resiliency between different parts of life, especially from personal life surrounding video games and work life overall. As again, in some cases, it's an addiction. Like, there's another idea about like how it would affect translatability. So, like, I have really no clue if, you know, the hypothesis would hold up because, you know, addiction functions in a way that it impedes, you know, major life activities, and, you know, greatly affects them in such a way like you're not able to normally like, you know, operate in the society that we set up here for ourselves. And so it really is like, is that resiliency there, like, truly able to be translated to another space that isn't, like, quote unquote as addicting? Because, I mean, even then, like, there are, like, the reason why I'm also just hesitant to say, like, you know, these kinds of gamers are really, like, addicted is because, like, they, like, I'm willing to bet, like, there are some individuals who simply do play video games, and they do so for, like, you know, a YouTube channel, and they put themselves through a bunch of, like, you know, hard challenges for the sake of, like, you know, creating an entertaining product for others to be entertained and enjoyed. So, like, there's a lot that goes into that. So, thirdly, there is some, like, personal stake in just studying this for the good of all humanity, considering the prevalence of video gaming becoming more and more of a staple entertainment option, which will not be going anywhere anytime soon. Like, it's significantly evolved since its, like, introduction into, like, the public eye in the 70s, and, like, this just, like, small Pong consoles, and just how it, like, evolved from here. Like, it just, considering, like, there are individuals who go so much into dedicating decent portions of their life to this medium, it's only logical we would want to continue to try and understand all of its facets if it is becoming such a pivotal part of the human condition. It is becoming a form of entertainment, a form of relaxation, a form of pastime that is adding itself to the human condition now. The problem with, you know, like, me wanting to study this is, like, I am a 23-year-old rando on YouTube. I stated this before, but I need to state it again. Like, I am a 23-year-old rando on YouTube who barely has a qualification, because while at least I do have a psychology degree, I am not on the level of a PhD renowned psychologist. Not like my college professors, alongside other more qualified individuals, to actually take the time in studying this. Like, they are being paid. They are being paid for their work. And so, like, I am a guy who just did his best to try and cram a decent amount of stuff into this podcast format with some like, you know, mixed results, honestly. I mean, for this podcast format, I would say, like, it was a success just to try and cram this time with so much, but at the same time, it's like in terms of, like, explaining everything, like, it's probably not, yeah, it's probably not there for, like, like, in the standards of most psychologists. So, like, to conclude all this, like, I will say, like, I think there really is, like, some basis to studying this, just because, like, humans created this game. Humans created Shin Megami Tensei 5. They create every single video game that you and I play. Like, I'm pretty sure, despite everything that artificial intelligence has done in, you know, creating music, and doing a bunch of stuff with with it, with their artificial intelligence programming. Like, at the end of it all, like, video games are a human thing, a human creation. And so, studying the people who put so much time and effort does bear consideration if we are to continue to thrive as a species. So, all the same, like, I appreciate you listening or vibing all the way through. Once again, I am not going to be able to get some of this out as easily without some kind of help from you, as you ultimately have the final say in what gets promoted and what doesn't on this platform, on YouTube. That's the power you have as a viewer. All the same, I am appreciative of all the support that you can give, as these past few months have been some of the hardest I think I've ever had in my life. Just seeing the growth of this channel, despite how small it truly is, has been truly a blessing. Thank you for all of your support. Thank you for taking the time out of your day to listen to what I have to say. I would not feel compelled to do something that I am passionate about if I didn't feel like there were reasons for doing so. Thank you for being at least one of those reasons. Like I really can't stress this enough. Like, cheers to the continued growth, and I will see you in the next episode, hopefully. Once again, like, comment, subscribe, turn on notifications. You don't know when the next episode of this is going to come out, so you gotta hit that notification bell. Take care now, and I mean that. Take care of yourself, and you matter. Like, I gotta go. I gotta go. 3 seconds. Sorry.